Hello and welcome to Ora Tea Talks in association with Good Magazine. I'm editor Carolyn Enting, and today we're chatting with Jules Bright, who is the founder of the world's first BioGrow certified organic sunscreen, Earth's Kitchen. Now, Jules is also a nurse. She has diplomas in medical herbalism and also body therapy and naturopathy. So welcome, Jules. I'm really excited to chat to you because I understand you have a very interesting story. And I thought it'd be great to chat first about your successful nursing career.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's really lovely to be here. Yes, it's been quite a long story, an interesting one, and a journey that's led to a place where I didn't actually think I'd end up. But, you know, when do we ever? It did start with nursing. I was from a long line of nurses, women that I suppose in those days just wanted to help and heal. So I went straight into nursing from school, and I travelled the world with it as well. Ended up in the Outback of Australia, on Heron Island for a year as an emergency dive nurse, and all over Europe and Israel, Cyprus, all sorts of interesting places, and ended up in London where I was sister in charge, they call us there, sister in charge of the acute surgical ward and unit of one of the top hospitals in the world. I suppose it's for royalty and military, and that was a fascinating job. It lasted over 5 years, and it really taught me a lot of that whole world, which we're not that familiar with in New Zealand, but also working with royalty and military and the creme de la creme of surgeons and surgical procedures.
Wow, that would have been fascinating. And also being on the front line. I mean, right now, medical staff are, really in the spotlight, with the whole COVID thing as well. But so I understand that your nursing career also took you to India.
Yes, well, that was the end of my nursing career, actually. I was practicing what I saw was, it was some things that came naturally to me were meditation and reflexology and things that I've been taught by my grandmother. And I was more of a nature baby than living in that world. So I brought those practices to my patients in the Harley Street Hospital. And it was things like before surgery, I'd take them into their happy place, create a visualization, and then hold their bubbling spring, it's called, a point on their foot, and they'd be very, very relaxed before surgery. And so they didn't require a pre-medication. And by the time the doctors came around and offered them that, it wasn't required. And then I was given my third warning because they said I was practicing witchcraft.
Oh, God.
This came from the top, from the matron, and I thought, well, what's bad about not needing drugs before surgery? They're happy, they're peaceful, everything's great. But because I was a sister in charge and I wasn't really adhering to protocol, it spurred me on to go for that holiday I'd always wanted in India for 6 weeks. 2 years later, I was still there, and I had a real awakening. I found myself, my true self, I suppose you'd say, in the form of a motorbike accident. And
wow.
that brought me into a place. Would you like me to share that part?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the motorcycle accident because I know that really changed your life. But before that, just going back to the not using medication before surgery. I'm assuming you mean like not obviously anesthetic, because that's you need that to be put you out when you're having surgery. But are you talking about sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Medication to make your nerves calmer before going to surgery.
Yeah, exactly. So often they would be given temazepam, which is a sleeping pill, 2 milligrams, or a shot of morphine. Those were the two main pre-meds. They're called pre-medication, and they have them an hour before. So that's exactly right. It's an anxiolytic. It calms down anxiety or nerves so that they can be wheeled up to surgery and not be a mess. So by the time the surgeon or the doctor came around to administer the pre-med, I had royalty, military, brigands, all sorts of people in the bed saying, I'm feeling really relaxed, actually. I'm feeling positive and ready, and just with a soothing, lovely, dreamy voice, clearly not needing a shot of anything. And yet that was to be punished.
Wow,
Uh,
that's crazy,
so-
because I've had surgery a couple of times in New Zealand for minor things and had to be put out, and I've never been offered anything like that.
oh, really? Okay. Yeah,
No, so maybe things have changed since then.
they could have, yeah. Or if you're in a calm state, I guess it's not required now, which is great. I'm talking, gosh, 20 years ago now. So, and this is in the top military and royal hospital where there's certain protocol that just has to be adhered to. And I understand it. It just wasn't my world anymore.
Amazing. Now, going back to India, and I didn't want to gloss over your motorcycle accident before, because really would love you to talk about it, because I understand it was pivotal as well in where you've gone now. But can you tell us about the accident first?
Sure. Yeah, I was in a world of happiness and free, and coming from that whole world of 15 years of nursing, really, all around the world, and then having this freedom was quite incredible. And I was on the back of a motorbike with a friend, and in those days, and probably still now, you don't need to wear a motorbike, you're just in singlet and shorts. And we were cruising at 80k along a gravel road, and a dog shot out from the bush, and we hit straight away. There was no warning, and off we went on the bike and just skidded along gravel for a good few minutes, and that was at speed. So we were really ripped up. I was on my right side and my partner was unconscious on the road. And we had left the last village probably 15 minutes ago. And so we were in the middle of nowhere. There was just these earthen huts. And I just heard in my days, suddenly in this world of pain, and really realizing that I'm going to have to learn to live with this disfigurement. I could see how bad the wounds were. And these women and children came out. I could just hear their voices all in Hindi. And they calmly picked us up and picked our bike up and took us into their house. And then they just started on this really gentle ritual, which was cleaning out the wounds with coconut milk and coconut toddy, which is the alcohol that ferments on the coconut tree. And that stung a bit. And then they told the children to go out to the garden and get some awful bitter herbs, the worst tasting in the world. And the children were tiny, like 3, 5, 7 years old, and just looking up at us with these gorgeous eyelashes, and off they went, and they knew exactly what to get, and put them on the fire and started stirring into the coconut milk these herbs, and handed us a coconut shell with this beautiful drink that was very, very bitter. That's what I remember. And started sipping it away, and next thing it was like happiness just washed over me. And they kept working on these wounds, which are very jagged edges, the kind that nurses don't like. And my partner had come to by now, and they were just washing away, getting all the gravel out, and starting to cut strips of coconut meat and put it on as wound dressings, and then wrapping the coconut leaves and twine around. So it was all coconut based. As we were sipping this beautiful concoction, which did start to taste better and better, the happiness started rising, the pain was completely gone, and it was, what it's like, the nerve endings are exposed. So got to the point where we were happy for this ritual to continue. Every hour or two they did the same thing. They took the coconut meat off and went back to washing it out, cleaning it out with the alcohol, and then getting into the back into the dressings again. And they did it all night, fed us this beautiful dal or curry, whatever they'd made on their earthen fire with the local herbs. Asked us to stay the night, I think, and then the next morning did the same all day. And by the end of the day, they gave us a little glass bottle of coconut oil each and said to put it on by sunrise, midday, and by the light of the moon, and got us on our way. And I couldn't believe when I woke up what I saw the next morning. These wounds were just pinked over. They'd granulated. And in New Zealand, I was the wound care nurse, so they used to ship me into different hospitals to assess wounds. So I knew wounds well, and I knew wound dressings well. I'd never seen healing like this in my life, even with the best of what we had in the world. And I just wanted to shout it from the hilltops. This is something miraculous that I was witnessing on my own body. Excuse me. And then we put the coconut oil on for the next 2 weeks, and honestly, I've got a tiny little pink scar. The rest healed. It healed up like nothing I've ever seen before. And this led me on to my journey of what else is out there, what else is growing in the middle of nowhere, knowing all our pain relief, all our wound care. Everyone was a medic. The children, the mothers, the kindness, joy, compassion, everything that came with that, the prayers, the incantations, the songs that came with it, all of it just introduced me to a world that I knew existed anyway, but I couldn't express or really explore in the Western medical system. So then off I went for a long journey on walkabout and traveled to many different countries, living with Indigenous cultures and learning of their herbal medicine ways. So yeah, that was a pivotal point. Thank goodness for that dog, who ended up being okay, by the way. Just very impressed. And thank goodness for that journey of being from a world of happiness to a world of pain, and then seeing the solution so quickly in the wild.
That's incredible. And did you ever find out what was on that coconut concoction? That sounded pretty interesting.
I suspect it was opiates. Just kept saying to the kids, keep that coming.
Oh my God. Well, I had a recent spill when I was jogging early in the morning. It was in February, and I tripped over. It was bad light, it was still a bit dark, and I went for a slide on the concrete and got grazed up all over my arms and everything, and had grit in them, and had to go to the doctor for 2 days later and get stuff taken out. And they put a little local on my hand to do it, and it was so unpleasant. So I can't imagine what it would have been like having gravel wounds on a bike. That's crazy. Now, speaking of motorcycles and also aeroplanes, I understand that you're also an aeroplane pilot.
Yes.
How have you managed to fit that in, and can you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, I've worked out, meaning that I like living on the edge and pushing any edges further out just to see what we're capable of as people. I was doing my naturopathy and medical herbalism. I'd come back from my walkabout around the world, and I had my first child and then second child, and a pamphlet turned up in the mailbox. I think you've probably all seen them have a trial flight, and it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to fly, and I feel like I live more in the stars than on Earth anyway, or more bird's eye view. And I'd been learning about bush medicine here, and I'd wanted to join the flying doctors when I was in the Outback. I didn't, only because I got taken up at this post in London. It was always something that fascinated me, and I was often on the flights from Heron Island to mainland if somebody got the bends. We couldn't take the helicopter, or with the pressure, we couldn't take the helicopter further than the tips of the top waves. So there was so many flights back and forward, and seaplanes and small planes, and I was just fascinated by them. So I took a trial flight, totally fell in love with it. I had a chief flying instructor that said, we can go down the slow way or the fast way. And I said, well, the fast way, and you never have to ask me that again. It's always going to be that answer. So we spiraled down. I was getting my jollies, and so I ended up getting my private pilot's license. And that's just flying Piper Tomahawks or Cessnas, 6 to 8 person. And it was just such a thrill to be able to keep a machine like that up in the air on my own over the sparkling blue, over, navigating around, reading maps and compasses, and knowing that we can do it. And also teaching the other pilots about bush medicine. If you fall into the forest, what do? Do you know what to do? Do you know what plants around you can help you and your co-pilot, and will you survive it? And so that's why I call myself a bush pilot. It brought that whole realm into being, where we can actually have confidence that anywhere we are in New Zealand, if we drop out of the sky, we're going to be okay, hopefully, because we've got the plants as painkillers, as splints, as stretchers, as stop bleeding, antifungal, antibacterial. We will not only survive, but we'll get out of there quite safely and confidently. So yeah, so that's why I fly planes.
So you still fly planes?
I haven't lately, because I let it, if you haven't flown for 3 months, you need to get tested again. So we moved to Australia and travelled around the whole circumference of Australia, learning about the medicine there, the local medicine. And I haven't picked it up again. So now where I'm at is I want to bridge it to seaplanes. and so I'll take the credits I've already got and bring that over to the seaplane license. So that's where I'm at now.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Talking about survival courses, I've been watching on TV an old program called The Long Way Round, which actor Ewan McGregor and his friend Charlie go on this motorcycle adventure, and they go across, you know, Russia and Mongolia on the way to New York. And prior to doing this, they had to go and do survival courses where they learnt how to survive in the bush, build a bivouac, things like that. Is that similar to what do you actually do that with New Zealand pilots? Do you actually run courses where you teach them the stuff?
That is something I really want to do. I didn't go that far. I taught bush medicine, and I call it forest aid. So and I love that movie too, by the way. And it's something I aspire to. I just bought a big motorbike, so I really want to do a massive trip like that. Yeah, I really feel like if we can survive in the bush happily and thrive, then it's the way to go. And so it's how we've brought our children up. Bush survival has always been a passion of mine, not just in the bush medicine and bush food, but yeah, building a stretcher, a bivouac. And Bear Grylls, I was always a bit of a fangirl there. I used to madly scribble down notes when I was watching it, and now of course you can get anything online. So I've got his books, and we practice it a bit here. We're on 10 acres with forest here, and it's a course I really want to bring to the fore for everybody and anybody, and make it cool again, you know, make it really, we were brought up building forts and going bush for days at a time. So I'd love to bring that back into the forefront, into our psyche, as something that's not only fun, but it's necessary.
I think so. And also just knowing our plants, you know, obviously when you had that experience in India, they all knew what the plants were out in the garden and were taught from a very young age. So what are 5 plants, for example, that can keep us going if we end up getting lost in the bush? What can we eat to keep ourselves, you know, for survival?
Yeah. So my all-time favourites, no secret, is kawakawa. It's the king or queen of medicine here. So that's Macropiper excelsum. It grows just about everywhere in New Zealand, and it doesn't have twins out there. So I usually teach plants that don't have a look-alike that could be dangerous. It's heart-shaped. You go for the leaves with the holes in them, and that's your full body tonic, multivitamin and mineral. If you had 2 or 3 leaves of that every day, you can throw out your tonics and supplements. I'm a terrible naturopath in that way. I'm more about the New Zealand bush medicine than supplements and things like that, although there's definitely a place for those. So kawakawa would be number 1. Great for first aid as well. You can chew it up and slap it straight on a wound or in a tooth socket if a tooth's come out, or toothache, and it's a painkiller. It absolutely numbs the area. Great for teething for babes and all sorts of things. Kawakawa is like an antibacterial. You can slap it straight on an open wound to prevent any infection, so if you're going to be out bush for a long time. Wonderful just to eat as a tea. It's the most delicious, beautiful tea. People are even making beer out of it. So kawakawa would be my first one. Then we've got harakeke, New Zealand flax, that everyone can recognise as well. So not only can you use the base of that as splints, the gel inside the base, if you split it and run your thumb up, you're going to get a very sticky gel. And that's fantastic, really powerful, potent antiseptic. So you can put that straight into wounds, around wounds. Very, very bitter to taste. But that you can use the roots, you can use the gel and the actual plant. The whole plant is fantastic for all sorts of things, so constipation or being bunged up or having the runs. It can do both depending what part of the plant you use. And it's a wonderful fibre, obviously, for rope and things like that. What else have we got? Tarata is another favourite. Tarata is a lemonwood, Pittosporum eugenoides, and it's often found, people use it as a plant that's found as hedges. You know, it's when you crush it, there's over a couple of hundred pittosporums, but when you crush it, it smells a lemony, carroty smell. And that they used to chew it up and slap it on saddle sores for their horses, and it would quickly heal overnight. In fact, it's the first plant I used to heal up my niece's eczema. I made a strong tea out of it, and then I just put a flannel in and washed her eczema 2 or 3 times a day. cleared it up. So that's growing all around as well. A fantastic wound healer. You can chew on the stems, which is the resin that comes out, and anything to do with mouth ulcers, gingivitis, periodontitis. It's fantastic. Just a tiny chew on the resin of the stems, and you'll feel it straight away. It moves through the mouth and down the throat. And so when we realize that we're just a tube, nothing more, we are just a tube, anything we put on the outside that is a wound healer, it's going to do the same throughout our body, throughout our intestines, colon, all of it. So this, what it does without, does within. Another favorite is Kānuka, and I'll group that together with Mānuka. We were taught Mānuka is the god, and if there's none of that, then you go for kind of little sister, Kānuka. Well, there's certain plants that are getting they're demanding our attention right now. Cacao is another one. It's not a New Zealand native, but it's certainly demanding our attention. You'll notice every other person's doing cacao ceremonies now, and it was really, kept in the jungles and the tops of mountains until now. Now it's really come to the west in a clever way. Kānuka's the same. Kānuka used to be the little sister that was trotting behind the cool brother. Now she's this goddess that's just really come to the fore. It's the only one that can kill off MRSA and golden staph. It's got the same sort of properties as Mānuka, but really strong and very, very surprising properties. To do with diabetes, to do with really severe infections of the mouth or other parts of the body. I was given some essential oil by a family that make it in their basement up north in Northland. Incidentally, the family had diabetes, they don't now. I'm not saying anything as a disclaimer, but there's lots of surprising side effects when the vapor is taken into the body. And I was told to try this on anything and everything, which I did. And it was incredible, from nail infections to really collapsed palates of the mouth from tooth abscesses. Heals it up in no time at all. So
it's Kawakawa oil you're talking about.
Kānuka essential oil.
Kānuka oil, yeah.
Yeah, and Kānuka and Mānuka flower at different times of the year. So we get the honey all year round. It's genius. And so I love Mānuka. I did my thesis actually on active Mānuka honey with Dr. Peter Molan. So that was UMF 15 plus. It's not called that anymore, UMF. But we tested it on gastric ulcers and varicose ulcers that healed over 28 days. And we're talking people that have been on bed rest for 2 years with varicose ulcers. It heals it up. So Mānuka absolutely has a place, and that's the one that's got the international stage, the active Mānuka honey, But Kānuka is another one that's up and coming.
Actually, I had some Kānuka tea when I went forest bathing recently.
Oh, wow.
In Dunedin, and they pulled some leaves off the plant and put it into some hot water and steeped it for a bit and then drank it, and it was just delicious.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's beautiful. It really is lovely. And it's something like all these keys sort of unlock in your body when you first inhale the aroma of the tea, and then you drink it. Your body just calls it in. And so the taste is part of that. In Ayurvedic medicine, the taste gives you a clue as to, yes, your body needs this. And if people are rejecting it, then maybe it's not their medicine for right now as well. So it's a forest bathing. I love the sound of that.
Lovely experience. And what about tree fern ponga fronds? Because I remember years ago I worked very early in my career. I worked for the New Zealand Army as a journalist. I wasn't in their forces as such. I was a civilian, but I got to do some really exciting things, and we did a SAS survival course where I wasn't doing it, but I was there as an observer for a couple of days. And we had to go way into the bush in Kennedy Bay in the Coromandel, and I was photographing what they were doing. And I photographed them, cutting these fronds and cooking them up, because they were out there for weeks and they weren't allowed to, they had to fend for themselves.
Yeah, beautiful. Actually, funny, I was going to mention that as well. The black mamaku, or the black tree the black tree fern is one of the tallest. It's the giant tree fern, and the frond from that is incredible. It's covered in black hair, which incidentally makes excellent itching powder. If you've got it in for someone, you cannot get rid of it. Put it down their back. We used to do that as children. don't do that. So once you shave all of that off, or you just brush it off, that frond is incredible survival food. So it's 99% water, and it's got a gel-like substance, so it's a slow release water. You can eat it raw or blanch it or cook it up, but it's a fantastic, you can survive on that for a long time to provide your water needs and your nutrient needs. So take all the hairs off, it looks beautiful, and then you can just slice it up. And I often pass it around when I'm teaching forest aid. I teach weekend workshops and on maraes and one-day workshops, and we'll slice it up and pass it around, and it's like the most delicate, very slimy, but the most delicate kind of green bean asparagus flavor. And once again, it's like slippery elm. It's just completely healing us as it moves through our tube. And I remember I was walking along one day with my mother, who had an ulcer that was not healing. She'd had it for months, and I was walking past a black mamaku fern, because they are giant ferns. This was down a hill a bit, so the path passed right where there was a frond, and I didn't need to harvest it. I just brushed a bit of hair off it in a little window, cut a tiny window out, popped it on her ulcer and stuck it on. The next morning, and I was surprised by this, I've got to admit, she pulled it off. It was a black chip, so it had completely, her body had absorbed it and left a little black crispy chip, which was the green succulent, almost aloe vera type square the day before. And she just had a pink ulcer, a little bit concave, no infection, no ulcer left. And she came bounding up to me, really surprised. I was just like, yeah, see, I told you, But I was actually like, wow. Oh. And we passed the same frond the next week, and the hairs had already started growing back over it. And then the week after, and it had just started completely growing over it. So it was healing itself, doing unto itself as it does with us. And this is how quickly these medicines work. It's incredible. We think herbal medicine, yeah, we have to go on a long herbal journey and be patient, and it's going to take months. Honestly, I've not found a faster medicine to work than our New Zealand native bush medicine. In fact, I set up an emergency earth clinic up here in magical Mangawhai, and swore that if what I was prescribing to my clients, if it didn't work, I'd go back to conventional medicine. And in the 10 years that I was running it, not once did I have to go back to conventional medicine, because each and every time this native medicine not just worked, but it got straight to the core of the issue and dug that out. So yeah, it just is sublime health.
It's incredible. And what about looking in our backyards? Like, are there any sort of, weeds or herbs that also have sort of medicinal uses, in our gardens?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a big fan of wild weeds. In fact, if you do get a chance, go and check out Susan Weed's work. She personifies weeds, which makes it really easy to learn, and she's a real character. She came to teach us when I was doing my diplomas in medical herbalism, etc. So in our backyard, we've got Dandelion. Is one of our best liver tonics. Absolutely. So you can make dandelion blossom cookies. You can roast the roots, lightly roast them, and it will be a coffee substitute. You can take the young leaves, throw it in anything, salads, curries, soups, lightly blanch them. They're really beautiful as far as, they're quite bitter, so take the young leaves. But as far as providing a lot of vitamins and minerals we need. And same with plantain. It's another one that grows like that has the vertical stems. And that's the Plantago lanceolata. I know there's a plantain that's a banana in some parts of the world. And so the plantain is one of the top 7 sacred herbs of the Hopi. And yet we see it as a weed. We're kind of conditioned to think weeds are a pest and we need to take them out. And I've seen neighbours digging dandelion out, thinking it's a weed and a pest, but actually it's nature telling us, you could do with this medicine. This is really something that would be a good tonic for you.
How do you know what's the right dandelion? Because are there different varieties of dandelion, or are they all? Are you pretty safe to know if you've got a lovely yellow flower that looks like a dandelion and it then has the big seeded head later on, that's a dandelion?
Yeah, pretty much. I do say with every herb and every weed and every plant, get yourself a plant identification book and you'll see it's called Leon Dante. So that's dandelion is lion's teeth. And that you see it on the leaves. It looks like lion's teeth. And then it looks like, it's the most common weed on most people's lawns. Yes, and like you say, the yellow blossom, and then the time clock, the blossom, the flower that we blow. So that's generally what dandelion looks like. But do go and get a identification book. I don't know of any. There's chicory that has a similar flower. I don't know of any real other weeds that look like it. So look at our wild weeds, look at what's growing around you. In Australia and here, there's something called chickweed, which I absolutely adore. The flower, we call it white star lady, and it makes the most beautiful pesto, and it's playful and fairy-like. So when you're even around it, you get the medicine, of course, with the dew playing around these plants. But I looked out on my lawn and there was none there, and I called it in. And this is bordering on the magic world of our earth and our earth medicine. I swear that 1 week later, 1/3 of the lawn was covered in chickweed. So it's something I go out and look for because I just love it. It's beautiful to throw in salads as well, and curries and soups. It's really high in lots of minerals. So this is the right here and now medicine, by the way. This is what the medicine that is growing on the earth right now. With whatever else is going on, the earth provides the medicine that we need, which is plugged in, tapped in, tuned into the situation around you and to our energy as well. So, for example, everywhere you hear children's laughter, you're going to find plantain, because it's nature's band-aid. So you can chew it, put it on a wound, even put it on half a scratch or a cut, and you'll see that because of the high allantoin, that part heals over and the rest will heal in its own time.
That's interesting. I can't picture plantain in my head as a plant. I'll have to definitely look that one up.
Yeah, it looks like dandelion in the way it sits on a lawn. It's just like out like that, and it's got the striations. It's got the you'll recognize it as soon as you see it. It's got the striped stems up like that, and it's long lanceolate leaves, or you get the broadleaf, which is more round, same look and way of growing. But it's a fantastic wound healer, so it's really everywhere, and great also to eat.
Amazing. So we're coming into the winter season too, where we're going to ills and chills. Are there any sort of antiviral plants or remedies that we can use over the winter time?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely get into, not saying it's antiviral, I'd get into immune tonics. So you want to build your immune system. We can naturally deal with viruses, and of course there's olive leaf extract and there's echinacea, and these put the immune system on alert. So they need to be used carefully, not just taking echinacea all the time. That basically sends out the white blood cells like the soldiers ready to fight. So if you're feeling something just coming on board, a tickle in the throat, or you're feeling headachy or something, then get the echinacea on board, but not as a prophylactic. That's just my personal advice. So what I would do is build up your immune system with seasonal, local fruits and vegetables and minerals. So getting on board, what is the seasons doing right now? So right now we've got the plants are putting their energy and their essential nutrients into their tubers, into their roots. So they're preparing us for the winter. It's autumn. So as the leaves, the reds and yellows and oranges are flashing at us and getting our attention, it's subliminally telling us by pressing those frequencies on the rods and cones of our retinas, it's telling us to go and look for red, orange and yellow, which are the berries that are coming out. And as the berries, as we take that in, it's increasing our vitamin C. Naturally over the winter, our blood thickens anyway, and this helps fortify the blood. It helps build us up ready for hibernation, for hunkering down, to getting creative, being around the fire. So we've got high minerals, high vitamins in these tubers and comfort kind of grounding plants, things that naturally grow their sugars on the vines and trees. So rather than getting them green, gas ripening them and putting them throughout supermarkets, If we can find the local growers, or if we grow it ourselves in our gardens, if you harvest something within 4 hours of harvesting it, it still contains the light photons. So you are essentially eating light, and that lights up our immune system, our lymphatic system, our circulation, to really have true health. So if we have true health at our core, we can, we've already got fungi, bacteria, viruses within our body, and we know naturally how to deal with that. Our body naturally detoxes, and as long as we've got a good, healthy, utilizing our food as our medicine. So I'd get onto the kawa drinks. That's taking, and I do teach with my forest aid course how to enter the forest with proper tikanga, which is proper respect and acknowledgement for our friends growing around. So the forest is our hospital, it's our cafeteria, it's our temple, it's our sacred space, forest bathing. It's a place where we can really be in relationship and get to know these plants as our friends. So as we harvest or wildcraft or forage our kawa, if you try this, if you try and pull a leaf and it doesn't come, when you sit into your heart space and ask, I'd love to make a tonic for the day or for the family, or my brother's got a sore throat, or whatever it is. My children used to say, ask from the heart. And then just stop for a minute and acknowledging with love and thanks the medicine. It's like, and this is, I'm a scientific person, but I also live in the magic world because of what I've experienced. And it's like the plant sort of goes and just throws the medicine into the leaves, and you watch how they easily come off. It's like it's handing you the medicine then. So this is a way that we can be in relationship with plants, and then you get the pure potent medicine. So you just take 2 or 3 leaves that are filled with holes. That's the medicinal ones, or the kawa, and then you put them in a cup, cover it with boiled water, and then put a cover over it, because the action and the magic is in the hormones, and the hormones are the essential oils, and as they rise up with the steam, you want to capture that magic, and that's where the medicine is. And let it steep for 10 minutes or so. You can add ginger, you can add honey or lemon, and that is in my view, that is your perfect tonic. If you've got licorice root, incredible, because that's for your adrenals. Manuka tea, it's why Captain Cook called it tea tree. Not because it's related to the tea tree, it's because it makes a great tea, and that's really going to prepare our body as well. Yeah.
I didn't know that, because I had people say, oh, tea tree is just Manuka, and I'm like, is it? And yeah, I was really confused by that, but that makes perfect sense.
Manuka is 33 times stronger than tea tree. It does have some similar properties, but it's a different plant. It's of the Leptospermum family, but it's because Captain Cook came and dished it up as tea, and for good reason too. Amazing immune tonic as well. Lots of our plants are great immune tonics, but if I'm to send a strong message, it would be local, fresh, like within 4 hours of harvesting, you're imbibing this light. And look around your backyard. I believe everything we need is growing within 5 kilometres of where we are.
Speaking of potent formulas, can you talk about Earth's Kitchen, your sunscreen? I understand you've got a laboratory now. I mean, how did you go from, get inspired to make a sunscreen?
It's like I say, it's not a future that I saw way back then, but I was concerned about what was in sunscreens before I had children, and I was living on our 3-acre block, and we were surrounded by ancient forests, and I had a laboratory there. I turned our garage into a registered laboratory and just started getting to work on many different eczema creams, joint and muscle rub, therapeutic creams, and balms, serums, tinctures, extracts from our forest. And sunscreen was one of them. And often I'd think, eureka, I've got it. And then 8 months later, the formula would split. And it would be the most frustrating, long process. So I did crush it just before I had my first child. But it was still white and zinky, and I had to send it in for tests year after year after year. So it took me I'd say 18 years to perfect it, in getting it all those properties that I wanted. I wanted it to be on a par with chemical sunscreen, except to be 100% natural, be globally certified, because I knew it would be getting a lot of attention. So the latest SPF results we got back were 65.8. I only claimed 50, but every year I'd send it in, it would be SPF 22, SPF 28, nearly, but I knew that it was possible, and yet the experts were all saying it's impossible, that it can't be done. You can't do 100% natural and SPF 50. So I just am bloody minded as well, and wasn't taking no for an answer, and just kept working at it. And it was really exciting so I've set up relationships with the beautiful people in the Pacific Islands, and we've taught them how to make essential oils from their native plants. And I hero those ingredients in the title of the sunscreen, because I want to tell the story of their native plants, our native plants, kawakawa, moringa, tamanu, harakiki, and how it can bring our sun protection factor. So yeah, now nailed it. Really happy to say that I launched it a couple of years ago, but getting it out there and winning the Best of New Zealand Natural Awards was really key, because my wish and dream is that families have this in their home as their chosen sunscreen, not necessarily looking for natural sunscreen, but it feels like now we've come to a place where we don't just care about our own health and that of our families, but of the environment. So legal legislation now has led to Hawaii banning the sale and use of chemical sunscreen. Palau Islands, which was where we were on our way to meet the president, who had accepted and wanted to host us for our sunscreen on their coral reefs, over 250 islands. So it's got wings. I mean, Hawaiian Airlines was telling our story as a solution for the coral dieback in Hawaii. Resorts were telling our story. And it wasn't until friends were saying, hey, did you see what they're talking about you over in Hawaii? Or they're saying this is a great solution. Because I just want to tick off being invisible, smells amazing, passes all the tests in Asia and Europe and FDA, in the States where it's considered a drug. And it just felt great to be able to do that with knowing it's certified 100% natural. So
you've done a fantastic job with it. It literally feels gorgeous on the skin, and it smells beautiful, and it does the job. And the fact that it is protecting our environment, and our waters and our reefs, as well as human beings, is just absolutely wonderful. And yes, I was going to say, this has just won the Best of Natural Awards, held. It's good that Good Magazine have facilitated and have been supported by Health Post. So it's just a fantastic cream.
Thank you so much.
So well done you on that.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's been amazing chatting, and your story is so amazing. I've learned so many new things. I'm now going to get a plant book, because I'm one of those people that are too scared to eat the dandelions that I pull out of my garden, out of my lawn. I do leave them there when they're in flower, because I like the bees to be able to have something to feed on. But yeah, I should really be a bit more adventurous with that. So thanks so much for joining me for a lovely cup of tea.
Thank you. It's been so lovely. Enjoying tea too. It's beautiful. Really, our kitchen's full of it as well. So it's beautiful to keep us nourished and hydrated in the winter as well.
Yeah, definitely does. It's great. Yeah, great alternative if you don't feel like drinking water. A herbal tea is a great hydrator. So
yeah,
it's been great chatting, Jules. Thanks so much for your time. Cheers.
Thank you, Carolyn. Really enjoyed it. Cheers.